So, but thank you for everyone that could join us today. Obviously, I know some of you founders from previous sessions, but essentially this is our kind of normal monthly 30-minute, 45-minute session on building a board that's appropriate for a startup and the different funding rounds or processes that you go through. I'm delighted to have Nick with us today, and we'll be picking his brains, and I'll be putting some questions to him specifically around the board of directors, but some other areas if you've got any questions around pitch decks or funding cycles, etc. So we've got lots to kind of put to Nick. Just quick intro, if I haven't spoken to any of you before, I'm one of the co-founders of Zanda, and basically Zanda supports startups to scale with senior leaders, board hires. And I've known Nick for a little while, and he's done a couple of sessions with us before, and it's always been great. So Nick, do you mind just giving us a quick intro to your background, and then I'll dive in with some questions and keep you on your toes?
Yeah, for sure. Morning, everyone. Just a whistle-stop tour of me. So I started in corporate. So I was at L'Oreal for 6 years doing marketing. I then set up a company called Design My Night in 2010. We raised only $500,000 in angel funding, grew that to 120 people. We started it as a media business, a B2C. We pivoted 2 years in to go to software. We built 3 different bits of software for the hospitality industry. We sold it in 2017 to a big software house in the UK. At that time, we had about 15,000 SaaS companies, customers, and we had about 8 million uniques a month on Design My Night as a B2C portal. We had a 2-year earnout, so fully exited in the end of 2019. Have been angel investing since 2018. So I angel invest in about 54 startups across UK, US, LATAM, and Africa. And as of 2021, decided to become a founder again for my sins. So it was a bit boring just being an angel investor. So I've started a company called Trumpet, which is trying to kill the sales PDF. So it's giving salespeople the opportunity to create personalized mini sites in minutes that they can send to prospects. So sort of like Shopify and Canva for salespeople, which we're actually just closing our funding round this week, hopefully. So our pre-seed. We've got about 1,500 on the wait list, and should be launching it in a couple of weeks.
Must admit, we signed up for your wait list last week, so it looks very, very interesting, that B2B sales cycle and the old school PDF and the analytics you can get from the back of the technology you're using is ridiculous, isn't it? Just talk us through Trumpet, if you don't mind, in a little bit more kind of from a user experience.
Yeah, I think, we looked at how, B2B sales worked in the main. There are obviously some, best in practice people, but, I know at Design My Night, we were selling to restaurants, and we, as the founder and my sales director would create like the basic template on like PowerPoint or slides and give that to the sales team, who would then invariably mess it up, put in the wrong logos, put in wrong imagery. We then had a Google Cloud of like 1,500 decks after like 5 years. And then also as a founder and a sales manager, you've got no visibility once you've sent that deck. You don't know what good looks like. You don't know if they're opening it unless you use something like DocSend. We sort of just wanted to come at it from a totally different angle. And there are quite a lot of systems out there now called sales enablement, where you can sort of upload a deck and send that out as like a data room. But we wanted to sort of get rid of the deck completely. So taking inspiration from Shopify, we've got lots of different templates. So a salesperson can literally go on, select a template. It brands it automatically, which is pretty cool. So we've done an API with a company called BrandFetch. So like if you were sending a mini site to Uber, you can just put in uber.com and our pod automatically brands it as Uber for you. So basically salespeople don't need to be designers, and they can create beautiful looking personalized mini sites literally in minutes. And then there's, as you said, full analytics. So something we want to get pretty big on is like analyzing all of your data, your interactions, heat mapping. And then we want to get to a stage where we can be like, okay, Andrew, if this is an SDR sending out a pitch, you need to put in 3 widgets. If you put in a pricing widget now, you're 20% more likely to convert. If you put in a personalized video at the stop, you're 4% more likely to get engagement. So we can really give you analytics on like what good sales looks like. And at the moment, because PDFs are static and Google Slides, you don't really have that. So that's what we're going to do on our journey, which we're pretty excited about. So yeah, huge exciting opportunity. This is only our MVP, but we've got huge plans for it. So it's all very exciting.
Obviously, Design by Night was largely bootstrapped. Do you stand by that was the right decision for Design by Night? And obviously, Trumpet, you've got different options, and all of your portfolio investments, you've got different options. How do you kind of weigh up that VCV bootstrap journey?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think I will get heat when I announce our Trumpet funding round. I think a lot of people that follow me on LinkedIn will I try and give very candid, good advice, that lived experience. And yeah, I'm a big fan of bootstrapped, and we did it at Design by Night. But, as with anything, different options suit different ways of doing it best. So bootstrap worked for us at Design by Night because it was more of a slow burn. There wasn't a software component at the start. We were a website, like a media website. So, now if you're hiring devs at like, anywhere from 50 to 120 grand each, and you're creating software, that's expensive. So it's quite tough to bootstrap unless you're a technical founder. So for Trumpet, we just saw it's an instant global opportunity. It's pure play software. We want it to be really self-serve. So that takes a lot of product and dev skill as well. And we just see that there is a big now opportunity for Trumpet. So we thought, okay, look, let's just take the money on now. As we're second-time founders, we've got a very nice valuation. So, for pre-product, pre-revenue, we've got very good valuation. So we're not having to give away too much of the business at this stage. But even though we're raising pre-product, pre-revenue, our aim is still to grow sensibly. So grow with profit in mind, revenues in mind, not just blow all the cash on expensive developers. So even though we're taking money up front, we still want sort of a bootstrap mind. We'll still be very careful with how we spend our money. So yeah, I feel like Trumpet's going to be a bit of an in-between. And it doesn't mean we're necessarily going to raise in another 6 months and then raise a year later. We're confident that this pre-seed can get us to profitability if we want it to. So I think we'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah, super interesting. And if you don't follow Nick on LinkedIn, follow him, because in fairness, your advice is always just brutally honest, which I think is quite refreshing when there's obviously lots of founders that have exited that it's all the glamour, but not necessarily some of the tips and the tricks and the disappointing moments that you've gone through. So, and I think actually, to be fair, from an experience perspective, going into a startup down the VC route and having the bootstrapped experience, the combination of both for your investments as an angel is going to help you with your portfolio, isn't it?
Yeah, I think giving advice to the portfolio, I can give VC advice now. I've obviously now got very good contacts at all the VCs because we spoke to most of them for Trumpet. So yeah, it definitely opens me up as an angel investor to be able to help my portfolio decide what route to go down. But if they do go down the VC route, I can now actually help with intros. And if they're raising follow-ons, I can actually give them intros now. Whereas before I was very much angel in the bootstrap mold.
Yeah. And at Design by Night, so just focusing on the topic in a bit more detail that we're here to talk about, at what stage did you start considering bringing in an advisor to help you and your founding team? And what was the founding team in the first year, 2 years?
Yeah, so Design My Night was always Andrew, who was my best friend from university, and myself. Both of us are non-technical. We have very different skill set, which I think was super important. So I was more marketing and sales, Andrew was more operations, finance. So that suited us. We sort of plugged each other's holes where we were missing. Dev was the obvious big one. We actually started with an agency, to be honest, and used their know-how when we were building Design My Night. And then what we did is our first sort of mentor, rather than official advisor, was a friend called Will, who worked at Google. We had hopes for him to become our CTO after our angel round. So we sort of used him as a mentor, but also used those sessions to get him excited about Design My Night. So he was giving us loads of technical know-how, how we should be building it, how we should be structuring it for scale, which obviously was new to us. But then at the same time, we were getting excited on where the business was going. And actually, when we did raise our angel rounds, like 2.5 years in, he was the first person we hired. So he came in as our CTO. So that strategy worked perfectly.
Yeah.
And then we brought all the tech in-house, and he managed that. So then he was almost like our third co-founder. So then we had that tech skill, and we treated him like a co-founder as well, which I think is important. If you're going to bring someone in on that level of respect, you then need to actually act on it. So we brought him in on management meetings. He came into our board meetings. So we did treat him like a third co-founder, and fully respected his opinion on all matters, not just dev. Then what we did before we raised our angel round was we got another mentor, who was the head of entrepreneurship at the London Business School. So a guy called John Bates. It was a chance encounter, which I won't go into now, but we were lucky enough to meet him. We told him about Design My Night, and that we were looking for some sort of like business mentor in the startup world. So we met him once a quarter, and we went to London Business School, talked him through what we were doing, and got his advice on everything. It was super valuable, and it was actually him that said, okay, I think you're ready now to start raising funds. So we put together a deck. He helped us with it. It was awful. We look back at what that deck was. They actually put that deck up on the screen when we did our closing dinner with our angels, and it was horrific. But John actually then said, I actually want to invest. So I think he was playing a bit of a strategy role as well with us. Yeah. So I'll come on as a free mentor, but he was like, okay, if this is going where I think it will go, I want to be involved. And I think that's something to consider, because obviously you've got advisors where you need to give equity or pay. You've got mentors that are doing it for free. And then you've obviously got chairmans, and you're setting up the board, which is again a bit more involved. So I think in your early times, if you can find mentors where you don't have to pay, but there might be a bit of give or take there. So for Will, it was on the proviso that we were going to go and hire him as our CTO. John was doing it with us because he thought, okay, maybe I want to invest. So it's a good way to start speaking to angels and investors and people you respect in the early times, and just ask for mentorship and be like, be very respectful of their time, and just be like, can I drop you an email once a quarter with some questions I have? Keep it very asynchronous at the start, and then let the mentor be like, oh, look, I'm happy to grab a coffee, or let's jump on a call, but just be very respectful of their time at the start. Because I think as a mentor now myself as well, the biggest fear is that when someone gets their tentacles into you, they're just going to be all over you. And obviously a mentor, you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. You're not really looking for anything in return. So I think if you're very upfront that you can do it very asynchronous, you don't want to take up too much of their time, and let the mentor then come to you if they're happy for you to WhatsApp them or grab a coffee once a month. I think that's super, super important. So then what we did with John was he was one of our angels, and then we actually asked him to be our chairman. So as soon as we raised our angel round of 250, our first round, we had 6 angels plus John, so 7. They all knew each other, so they all knew John as well. So we said to John, do you want to be our non-exec chair? And the board was myself, Andrew, and John. I think what was important for us, that we always kept control of the board. And I think that's also important when you're raising VC. Be very mindful. So this pre-seed round that we're doing with Trumpet, we're not giving them a seat on the board, knowing that if we raise further down the line, the next round, they'll probably want a seat on the board. And, you know, for as long as possible, you want to keep control of that board, because there's obviously a lot of terms in your contracts and your agreements that will be board majority. And you would hope that the founders would stick together on decisions. So the board was just us 3. What we did say was we opened up our board to the angels. So we said, if any other of the angels want to come and join our board meetings, feel free. We're happy to have you there. It actually turned out that 2 others showed up pretty regularly, but they didn't have an official title. They didn't get extra equity. They just actually really enjoyed it and wanted to help us grow the business as well. So that's quite a nice thing you don't really hear of. And actually, I don't see that in my portfolio companies, because I very rarely get invited to a board meeting. But, you know, if you've got angels that you like and you trust, you hope that you've let them into your business because they've got a certain skill set that they can help you with beyond money. And the few board meetings that I have been to for my portfolio company where I'm not on the board and I'm not a chairman, I've actually given them a lot of value in that board meeting, and we've had some great discussions out of it. So I would definitely say, you know, to certain angels that you like and you trust, definitely open up the board to them. John was always happy with that as well, having the other people at the board meeting. And then John took care of all like the formalities of a board meeting, you know, that the chairman has to do. He was happy to do all of that. And that's pretty much how we took it to exit. So the board was us. Really, we kept it very lean. The board was us 3. We did it once a month, the board, and then probably 18 months after that, it went to once a quarter. And we very much leaned on our angels as well, regardless of the board meeting. It's another post I put out on LinkedIn recently. It's the biggest hack you can have, is you've got all these angels around you or mentors or whatever, and founders just forget to ask them questions. You know, again, I'm an investor in 54 businesses. 50 of them engage with me only on the monthly update, which is an email. And probably half of those don't put any asks in that monthly update as well. They forget that investors aren't sitting there thinking about your business 24/7. You know, we've got other stuff to do. It's up to the founder to put stuff in front of the angels and be like, hey, guys and girls, you know, these are the 3 things I need help with this month. If anyone can help me, you know, hugely appreciated. Or does anyone want to come to our board meeting this month? Or, you know, just try and engage. You've got all these experts around you. And so many founders are just head down, which I understand, and then just wait for that monthly or quarterly email update, and they think job done. They don't see it as how can I actually get help from angels. And the worst thing that can happen is you put out asks and no one replies. But great, okay, you haven't hurt anyone. But the best that can happen is you actually get intros or help or strategy advice. So that's like one of the biggest advice I can give you, whether you've got mentors, advisors, a board or whatever, is anyone invested in your company, regularly put an ask out in an email. These are the 3 things I need help with this month. If anyone can help me with any of them, I'll be hugely appreciated.
So much information in there, Nick. Just on the mentor piece, making it light touch, and then subsequently, whilst being respectful of time, you kind of get that buy-in from the potential mentor as well. that's quite a good barometer of your business, isn't it, as well? If you've got a few mentors and they start wanting to be more involved, it's almost an encouraging sign, as well as there being a future potential partnership there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it shows that they're more engaged, which means the business is going places. And a couple of my startups, I've become pretty pally with the founders. They're WhatsApping me quite regularly because I've opened that to them, and I will reply quickly to them. And this whole, angel investors are getting younger because you've got exited founders now becoming angels, so you can relate, I hope, to a lot more of your investors now anyway. But it doesn't have to be like, I'm the money person, you're the founder. Like, as I said, I've met their partners and we've gone out for dinner with some, like, we've become actual friends. And then, we'll meet up and just talk about the business for an hour. And as a mentor, or an investor, you actually really enjoy that, because that's the majority of why you become an investor, is to help startups. So yeah, don't be afraid of reaching out. And what we're doing with Trumpet as well, a good way is to, when you approach mentors, is give them a path to take them on. So, what we're saying, so for example, I'll give you a very practical example. So Trumpet, we've hired a lead dev. He's not good enough yet, or more experienced, I should say, to become our sort of principal engineer and then CTO. But when we hired him, we were like, you are going to be our lead dev. You're going to head up our engineering. And as the team grows and the business grows, we would want you to get to a CTO role. But what we're going to do is get you some mentors. And we've been speaking to I've asked my network and been speaking to some incredible people that, one has worked at Microsoft, Amazon, has presented to Jeff Bezos, has done it all. But I said to him, I was like, I don't want to take the piss out of you either. So, what I'm looking for is some mentorship for Sam at the start. But whether that becomes a formal coaching role and we pay you for your time if we all get on and we see the value you're adding, or it turns into some sort of split between, some paid and some equity, we're happy to look at that. But at the start, we'd really appreciate like a month of mentorship or 2 months, and see how you and Sam get on and whether you see the benefit in it as well. Because as I said, a lot of mentors are doing it out of the goodness of their heart, but most of them are also very busy people as well. So I know myself, I can only sort of have like 3 mentees at a time, but other people might approach me with that and be like, but would you be interested in equity? And then you're like, okay, well, yeah, because my time is worth money. So actually, if I am going to mentor you, I would take some advisory equity, and then I'm more indebted to grow the business. So I think be very upfront and take them on a journey. Don't be afraid to approach people that you think are unapproachable. Your job as founder is to sell them your vision for the company you're building. And then, as I said, take them on a journey as a mentor where they will get remuneration from it. Because it's a lot to, I get a lot of messages of people just asking for me to be a mentor, or can I grab a 10-minute coffee with you? I mean, 10-minute coffee, that doesn't exist. A 10-minute coffee is at least 90 minutes. Or can I grab a 20-minute call? I've never had a 20-minute call because I'm not ruthless. It's always an hour call. And I would love to be able to do that to everyone that messages me, but I just physically can't. So it's important, if you've got someone that you think is like high stakes that you want involved in your business, whether it's mentoring you or someone else in your team, I think it's important to show respect of the value of their time as well, and take them on a journey.
I think one of the things that startup founders sometimes underestimate is the opportunity to hire below the level you need and give that plan to where they're going to go. And it means that you've got potential longevity of not needing to hire above that individual, ambition, drive, if they've got the right intellect and desire and the right kind of value add to the organization. You've got someone for 5 years with 3 promotions in mind to a CTO role, and whilst individuals coming from a corporate background or are currently in startups maybe are less bothered about job titles than ever before. I still think individuals are motivated by extra responsibility, achievements, making a bigger impact. And I think what you've described there, Nick, is identifying someone with superb capability and intellect and desire, but also giving them support infrastructure with the mentor so that it gives them their best chance possible. And if it doesn't happen, then you can feel pretty confident you've done everything you can.
And we've said that to Sam. We've been upfront with him. We were like, if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, we're going to give you all the tools you need to become CTO. But a CTO is incredibly different to a lead dev. Let's just get that straight. I think people throw around titles because you're the first hire, you're a CTO. It's the same with NEC, CFO, CPO. Like, it's incredibly different. A CTO is actually about hiring, team management, strategy, infrastructure, being the face of the business from a tech point of view, doing talks, having the confidence to talk about your tech stack at dev meetups and all of that. You're not sat at your laptop coding all day with the title of CTO. So I think it's being very upfront with your team as well on what we need to do to get you there, and we're going to give you all the tools that we can to get you there. But if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, which might be you don't actually want to do that, which is fine, or we might not just get you to that level, or we might scale quicker than you are going to take to get there. That doesn't have to be the end either. Like, you could be very happy as ending up as VP of engineering and then have a CTO on top of you. Like, it doesn't have to be the end if you don't get there. So I think that's very important as well is when you find mentors for the team, is taking the mentor on that journey and taking the team member on the journey as well.
You talked about delaying a board seat to VCs. For first-time founders, they're probably slightly more nervous around pushing back to VCs on a seed or a Series A round. But from what you're seeing in the market, how do you see that playing out? And is it feasible to push back on the board seat to a later stage round?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, we've just done it, so it is feasible. It obviously depends on the VC. You've got to build FOMO into your rounds. We were very lucky with Trumpet. We had like 3 or 4 term sheets, so we could start to play the VCs off against each other and say, look, these are the terms we want, basically. I personally think that, whether you're an experienced founder or not, to be pre-seed or even seed, and you go to VC, and to have a VC on your board that early stage, it just doesn't feel necessary. And I think you should be able to articulate that to the VC and just be like, look, the minute you take on VC money in their world, you're going on that gravy train. So you're raising. You might not do that, but that's what they're expecting you to do. So you are well within your rights to say, we're then going to raise a post-seed, and then we're going to raise a Series A, and probably Series A, whoever leads that round is going to be on the board. And then we're going to do a Series B, and if that's a different investor, they might want to be on the board. So it's just like, if anything, it gives you a bit of respect from the VC at pre-seed, that you understand what's ahead of you. And then you don't have that pre-seed person that might have invested $1 million on the board, and then you struggle to get the VC that invests 10 million on the board because it's too crowded. So I think it just shows that you've got foresight. And again, when you're negotiating with a VC, the worst they can say is no. With any negotiation, at that time, if they've given you a term sheet as well, which is then when you start discussing all the nooks and crannies of the deal. If they've given you a term sheet, yes, they can pull out, for starters. So it doesn't mean the deal's done, far from it. But it shows that they want to be committed to that business. They've signed it off with their IC. They've done a lot of work internally to get you that term sheet. So by the time a VC has given you a term sheet, to a certain extent, the power is in your hands. You've done the job to lure them in, and they are on board. So when it comes to negotiation, yeah, you really need to stick up for yourself. And for me, I don't think at that early stage a VC should come and sit on your board. It's just not important at that stage. You know, it should be very founder led, a lot less formal than having like monthly formal board meetings. It's just not required. So yeah, definitely push back. You know, we've had like 4 weeks of negotiation back and forward on terms. Some they've rejected, some we've rejected. We've come to a compromise. It's the same with any negotiation.
And I guess the more FOMO, the more chance you've got it going your way, right?
Yeah. That, you know, the more FOMO you can get. And I'm going to do a big LinkedIn post once we close the round about how we built
Not before.
No, not before. How we actually built the round out and how it played out with as much info as I can legally put. But yeah, VCs are just people that have targets to hit, and they all suffer from FOMO and missing out on deals. So yeah, if you can build FOMO into your round, the power really is in your hands.
Talk to us about functional specialists, because obviously you resolved and spotted your gap at Design My Night pretty well. I don't know if it was quickly or not, but the CTO gap. But how do you see functional specialists in a business as it continues to grow?
Yeah, I have to say I'm really on the fence with this one. So I see a lot of very successful founders that I've listened to or spoken to that are very much bringing expertise early, and if you need to pay for that expertise, that's absolutely fine. Whereas what you were talking about earlier, which is also what we did at Design My Night, was hire like hunger and drive and work with them to get them to that level. I think there's an in-between point. I think Design My Night, we were too far on the left, and Andrew and myself had to spend a lot of time coaching these people ourselves, coaching them about management. My marketing assistant, I spent a lot of time with coaching her about marketing and how I could turn her into a marketing manager, but that took a lot of my time. We never had a CFO. We never had a CPO. We never had a product person at Design My Night. Andrew and I managed the product, and we had 3 products until exit. So we were the product managers. So you could say we were a bit too involved in everything, which was probably a failing of ours. But the other side where I see startups fail is they raise money and then go and hire 100 grand CPO, 150 grand CTO. And you know what? A lot of these people don't really have, you're just a job to them. They get their salary. They don't really have that drive. And for me, the most important part of the journey is those first sort of 10 hires. And those first 10 hires, you should be starting to build out your important pillars of your startup. So at Design My Night, it was customer success, it was tech, it was sales, it was marketing, and it was account management. At the start, those were our key pillars. So we went and got people with sort of 1 to 2 years experience in each that we gave equity to, that we saw had the drive, that could do the job but wanted to learn. We could send them on courses, we would give them mentors, Andrew and I would help them. And that core team were like founders, like they were our eyes and ears on the ground as well. So when we got to 120 people, that core team was still the ones going to the nights out and the parties and reporting back if there was any sort of unrest in the camp, and they always had Design My Nights back if someone, you know, wasn't happy or something. So finding that core ring around you of important pillars for the business, important gaps in your skill set, and ones that can grow with the business are fundamental. And out of that 10, probably 8 stayed till exit for us. So they were super important. They had shares, so they were incentivized to grow the business with us. But I think there's a bit of both. So I think, you know, if you're a D2C business and you don't have any digital marketing skills, it's probably worth spending 80 grand getting a hotshot digital, growth marketeer in. But then as part of that interview process, it's trying to understand if they have that drive. You give them equity, you vest it over 3 to 4 years, and see if they really buy into that vision with you as well. I'm not saying everyone with a high salary doesn't have that drive, but I think with Trumpet we'll do a bit of a mix, to be honest.
I think a lot depends on how quickly certain milestones come up and whether you've got the expert for that milestone and can they get up to speed quickly enough. I don't know if you agree, but I mean, most of what we do, for example, is placing CFOs, FDs into startup scale-ups. So if a Series B round comes up, and it's a pretty significant one, is there a junior mid-management level finance professional in there that can be the face to investors? Some can if they've shadowed a CFO before, but some either haven't got the confidence, or it's not necessarily always about drive at that stage. But I guess with Design by Night, there's elements of your growth trajectory and not having a milestone for Series B or certain raises that enabled you to maybe keep that leadership team so stable for so long.
Yeah, we could, you could almost say it was an immature C-suite that we had. And because we never raised money with VC and we got to exit while it was all still manageable, we weren't this huge global business doing hundreds of millions of revenue. We never needed, the specialist skills. Yeah, probably. So for when we did our exit, for example, we almost hired in a CFO for that couple of months to work with us. So yeah, it's understanding certain milestones. So we brought someone in to help us do our exit with us. And then our finance manager that had been with us for 6 years, she assisted him and us on sort of more of the admin work of closing that deal. So as you say, it's understanding milestones and what you need for each milestone. And I say you can bring someone in for like 2 months to get you through a raise, to get you through an acquisition. You don't necessarily have to hire that. The main ones are probably CFO, CEO is a big thing I'm seeing now, that founders are stepping back earlier and bringing in CEOs. That seems to be quite a big trend, dare I call it that, at the moment, which is fine. If you get the business to a certain level and the founder isn't the right person to manage a team of 100 plus, then bring in a CEO. And CTO. I think they're probably the 3 core when you're sort of raising money and acquisition. The other ones like CPO, for me, are probably less important. But yeah, those 3 pillars are the ones you want to make sure you've got the expertise for at certain timelines of your business.
Did much change when you went from a mentor to a chairman at Design by Night?
Not really. Like, the relationship we had with John, as I say, he did the formalities of a chairman with every board meeting and minutes and all of that. But apart from that, we just set up that relationship with John and our angels that it was very fluid. It was just like, look, guys and girls, like, if we need you for something, we'll reach out. If the business is going to be struggling for any reason, we will reach out. We won't just catch you cold with an update where everything's going wrong. So we just had that relationship that was very fluid. We were very fortunate that we never had any disputes in the board. So John didn't need to, become extremely sort of professional as chairman and maybe put his foot down with certain things. The only big decision was acquisition. So was it the right time to exit? A couple of our angels wanted us to keep going and go to take it to America. They just watched us from the wings, growing it month on month, quarter on quarter. So of course they'd want you to keep going. So that was the only big board decision that we had to take, was accepting the acquisition deal. And as I said, a couple of the angels didn't want us to accept it. But we showed John that it was the right time for us to accept this deal. And it was the right thing for us as founders and you as investors. And look, COVID was around the corner, so that was the right decision to make.
Yeah.
Didn't know that at the time. So that was the only big decision that we needed sort of board majority, but we got very lucky.
What did the either quarterly or monthly board meeting bring to you as a founding team? What were the benefits?
Yeah. Again, I'm an advisor to an equity advisor to 4 companies, and I come onto their quarterly boards. And I think the biggest skill you can have with a board meeting is keeping it succinct. I sit on some that just roll on, and you just get into these deep discussions about one particular customer, for example, that can just be taken offline. So for me, the board meeting was, okay, who've I got coming to this board meeting this quarter? Because some of the angels would dot in, and with certain skill sets, we would do like a 20-minute business update. So this is the headlines of how the business is doing. Here are KPIs. Here they're doing month on month. Here how they're doing versus forecast. Raise any red or orange flags at that point. They would normally ask a few questions about the finance stuff, so like cash in bank and debtors and all of the fun stuff. And then we set aside like 45 minutes to talk about strategy. So we as founders would be like, okay, this board meeting, we want to talk about whatever, growing our sales pipeline and our sales team or something, and open up a discussion around that. And I think that's really important if you can go with a few themes for a board meeting, because the idea of a board meeting, for me at least, was to then lean on their experience and get as much information from the people in that board that I can. It's not about them policing your business. And if there is policing, that's done in the first 20 minutes. Again, I see business updates that go on for an hour, and it's just not necessary. So keep it succinct, do your business update, do all the policing at the start, and then take to the board meeting a theme or themes that you want to discuss and get their opinion on, from hiring to sales to product to whoever you've got in your board. And just, get as much discussion going as you can. Just see it as like an extended coffee, and just get as much info as you can from those people.
You've taken the words out of my mouth of what I normally do on these kind of monthly board kind of sessions. It's the executive's job to run the company, not to be micromanaged by the board. And I think the board meetings and the board is there to discuss whatever's put in front of them. So if the founders want to waste that time talking about whether to spend £2,000 on a coffee machine in the co-working office, then that's what they'll talk about for 20 minutes. But, as founding team, you're trying to leverage the knowledge, the network, the experience of the advisors and of the board, so that it can drive the business in the right direction.
And even the management team. I'm third founder with Trumpet, Rory. So, when we have our weekly management update that we do, we make sure we've got a Google Doc that what are we discussing on this call? And I just think for any big meetings, that just 3 or 4 points of discussion that everyone can think about before the meeting, and then the meeting doesn't just go down a path into God knows what. So I think whether that's your board meeting or whether that's your management meeting, I think having that structure is really important.
I think there's so many examples where the people going to the board meeting are sent the information, either they're given it on the day, or they're given it 2 hours before the board meeting, and then 90% of the meeting is reacting to new information. And what you're describing is building continuous involvement with the board, so that they're seeing something 2 days in advance of a board meeting, which has got the relevant KPIs, maybe got a video from one of the senior leadership team talking about a particular problem at the moment. And then the individuals and the advisors and the senior leadership team and the board go to that meeting not needing to discuss much backward looking elements, and being able to leverage their skills and their knowledge on all the forward looking elements. How are you instilling those things at Trumpet or with your investments? What do you see working well currently?
Well, as I said, with Trumpet, I think we'll do very similar to as we did with Design Night with our board and our management meetings, and our use of mentors and advisors. We're already looking to build up an advisory panel at the moment, and you know what, I just reached out to people that. So, we're in the B2B sales space. I literally went onto LinkedIn and I messaged the VP of sales at HubSpot. I messaged the CRO at Cognizant, and these people replied, and we had a call, and some of them are actually invested in this round now, like a small angel check. And then I said to them, we're also going to build an advisory panel with equity, and, we'll discuss that in a couple of months if that's of interest to you. So we're doing that with Trumpet. We'll have like an equity advisory panel of just experts in our field that I just reached out to cold on LinkedIn. With my investments, it's very mixed bag. Very, very mixed bag. As I say, because I'm normally a small investor, I'm not privy to like board meetings, board details. I just sort of get the monthly update.
I think the thing with you reaching out cold to get advisors, it's cold, but it's so targeted and niche to what they have done and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, they see, and in that message to them, I've reached out to you for a reason. I make that clear. You look at their career, you reference their career, you reference why you think they would be great to be an advisor or a mentor or an investor. Again, that journey that you're going to take them on. So I don't want to just waste your time. I realize your time's precious and I want remuneration for you. And most people are happy to jump on a quick Zoom and just see if there's something there. So yeah, targeted, personalized outreach is really effective.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I'm conscious we normally do this with kind of 45 minutes, but we've overrun slightly. There's a few questions in the chat box, which I will just quickly read and see if there's anything for you, Nick. But I've had one come through directly, and it's not really board related, but it is, you basically see a lot of pitch decks with your current role. And is there anything that you're seeing stand out in the last year that's either you always want to see or that's a little bit different that kind of grabs your attention?
I mean, so I talk about, my podcast is called Pitch Deck. So
it's a good place to start.
Listen to a lot of information on my podcast about pitch decks, because yes, I see hundreds of them. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother webinar in itself, but I haven't seen anything different as such. But I think the ones that I love are short, like 10 to 12 slides. They are designed. I still get just like, almost like Word document type looking things, with Canva. It doesn't cost you anything, and there's pitch deck templates on Canva. There's no excuse for having a poorly designed pitch deck now. That will put me off, because I just think, okay, well, if the founder hasn't got the nous to go and use Canva or pay 100 quid for a designer, then it's probably not the best founder. If in the first 3 slides we don't know what the problem solution is, that's not good. The less words, the better on every slide. A good tip for helping with that is making the title say something. So a lot of titles I see are problem, solution, ROI, revenue model, but what you can make a title discursive, so it can be problem hyphen XYZ, solution title XYZ. So you sort of give the synopsis in the title. The last research I did, the average time an investor spends on the first read of a deck is under 90 seconds. So and I do the same. It really is flicking through it. So if you've got all this like deep text on there and 18 slides, the investors just aren't going to read it. You've got to really see the deck as like a brochure to pique their interest, to jump on a call. And on that call, you can give them all the information you want based on their questions. But it's all about just flicking through a deck. So making it as brochure as possible. Problem, solution, revenue forecasts, competition, team. That's pretty.
On team, do you want them to provide clarity on, they know there's a gap somewhere and they've got a plan for it, or you're not really bothered about that? You just want to see what they've got?
I like to see that. So it's more like with this round, we will be hiring a digital marketing manager. We've identified these 3 roles that we want to hire. Even better, if they've already started looking for them, we've identified 4 people for this role that we're waiting on the funding round to come in. On the team, again, don't just stick logos. So like Nick Telson, L'Oreal, Design My Night, Horseplay Ventures, that doesn't tell me anything. So just do your key people. We don't need to see like the whole team. Just like, who is the leadership team? Give like a short paragraph about you, not just your logos. Because I've seen it all. People put like Uber, and then you actually look on their LinkedIn and they were like coffee assistant at Uber. So let's actually just have a line about why you're the right person to be in the senior team at this company. That's it, I think.
It's a new job title. I've not heard that one. Do you send pitch deck sent to you via DocuSend, or how do you normally? What different methods?
DocuSend we get, PDF, Google Slides, Notion. Some people do them in now. I imagine some people start using Trumpet to do it. I mean, for Trumpet, I use DocuSend, and it is very helpful because you can then, because obviously decks get sent around. So when you send a deck to an investor, expect that to be sent around. So DocuSend is quite useful because you can see who else is actually looking at the deck, who it's been sent to. A good tip is actually if you can be asked to do it, is create a link per investor you send it to, because then you can see specifically who that investor has sent it to.
Okay.
So that's quite a good way of doing it.
There's been a lot of noise around the NDA process, and
that's rubbish. Like if someone asked me to sign an NDA before looking at their deck, it's going straight in the bin. NDAs aren't worth the paper they're written on, for starters. Like, you've got how the hell do you know if I've spoken to someone about it? Most angel investors are decent people. We're not looking to steal your idea or spread the idea around or whatever. And you know what? The minute you put out a deck, be prepared that it will land in your competitors' hands. It will land in people's hands you don't want to see it. That's just the nature of the beast. It's the same with an acquisition. Some of our big competitors saw our big sales deck when we were being acquired at Design by Night. That's just the nature of the beast.
That was the answer I was expecting, but
send an NDA, please.
You put it more succinctly than I was expecting. Any other questions for Nick at all? Feel free to come off mute and ask. Otherwise, we will wrap up and look forward to seeing you all again another time.